Right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to a meeting of the Farnham Board here at Farnham Town Council on the 17th of January. We have a number of people that are online that when we get to that section of the agenda will no doubt introduce themselves. But can I welcome, first of all of you, all of the board, and also we have a number of students here from University of Creative Arts. So behave yourselves. I don't want any bad behaviour today because that's not how these board meetings are normally run, but we shall see. Okay, so I think unless there's anything that from a housekeeping perspective we need to cover off. Okay, hopefully everybody knows where that is. Thank you. I think we might just have a couple of late entrants. Good. Okay. Right. So let's crack on then. So item 2, actions and minutes from the last meeting. So there were 4 or 5 actions. First of all was the heritage plan. And sharing that, which gives the latest scheme overview, and that is now publicly available. Indeed, I think all board members should have seen that and had the opportunity to comment. Secondly was the phasing plan, and we'll come on to comms partway through this agenda, but that phasing plan was published online before Christmas. And will indeed be continually updated, and we'll talk about how we can make sure that the phasing of works is really well communicated now that we're about to commence. And there was supposed to be representation at the Christmas events, but unfortunately, I think the Christmas market was cancelled because of adverse weather. Catherine?
So if I can just correct, although the FIP team were not able to attend the Christmas lights switch on, a number of councillors did attend and did talk to a number of residents and provide feedback to the team.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, yes. Then the comms plan was shared with members and officers, which we'll come on to. And then finally, I think, Catherine Powell, your comments regarding to the town TDP about projects in appeal was passed on to them. And so I think all of those action points have been dealt with or will be picked up as we move through the agenda, unless there's anybody that wants to raise anything else. No? Okay, thank you. Right then, so we will start with an update on progress. Elaine, thank you.
Thank you. So on the screen at the moment is the key successes of FIP. I'd like to draw your attention that there has been a lot of work, since this was developed, and we're moving forward. Our most recent successes, which have been added to the screen, is the 20-mile-an-hour scheme in Upper Hell, which was completed, which we'll talk about in a moment. But it kind of highlights what we've done since the last board and what's happening next. The team will talk in the next set of slides. So this is the 20-mile-an-hour scheme. So this is the Upper Hell Road. It was constructed in October. It was completed 1 week ahead of programme. And the photos show on the right one of the tables and crossing point. We'll be carrying out a post-construction road safety audit, which was going to be undertaken shortly, and any kind of outstanding actions will be captured then. So now we have all 3 20-mile-an-hour schemes. We've got the 20-mile-an-hour in Farnham Town Centre, Waden Lane, and now Upper Hell Road. Next slide. So this is the Borelli Riverside Cycle Improvement Scheme. So as you would have seen, there's been signs going up. The electrical connections have been well, been removed from the riverside. So if you look at the slide on the red section, this is the Riverside Walk. So this is being delivered by Surrey. It started last week. It is going to take 11 weeks. This is due to the fact there's a lot of trees, so it's a lot of hand digging and sort of sensitivities around those areas. And I'd like to say thank you very much to Councillor Fairclough for helping us with the legal agreement. So we can now use the Riverside car park for our works. So temporary diversion plans have been displayed on site at the entrance. This is normal for a right of way rather than the full shebang all round town. And letters have been sent to the nearby residents and stakeholders. We've also spoke to emergency services and our members. So the website will be constantly updated. And in terms of Borelli Walk, we are a little bit held to the removal of the bridge by the Brightwells Crest team. So that obviously leans on their kind of programme, but essentially they should be constructing the footpath in the summer of this year. So I haven't got as much control, sorry, of course. The latest we've sort of had is about June, isn't it? But it obviously is there for removal of the bridge, but actually installation will follow quite swiftly afterwards. I think it only takes a day or two to take the main bridge out, and then the new one will follow. But the works, which is on the south, is best for them to do because they're going to be doing some ancillary works as well down by South Street and the bridge. So it just links it all in together.
And sorry, just for the benefit of the students as much, if when you first speak, if you could just say who you are, please, that'd be helpful.
Any questions before I move on Borelli's?
So obviously there is, sorry, I'm Councillor Catherine Powell. I'm the Surrey County Councillor for Farnham North. I failed at the first hurdle. So obviously we've had a lot of discussions previously about the removal of the bridge and the interfaces with traffic management, particularly around the A31 and the access around the A31 to remove the bridge. How does June fit in your opinion, with the other works that we're planning to do? Because we will, of course, have closures in June based on your current phasing plan.
So what we've been told so far is the bridge will be removed at night. So the impact on the A31 is minimalised. So hello, everybody. I'm Elaine Martin. I'm the programme manager.
Yeah, okay. And I mean, I think presumably that's going to be a few nights to do that. So I think we just need to be absolutely, well, there'll be a plan, won't there, in terms of how that does. But I think if it's going to be, if it is going to actually disrupt the A31, then I think we do need to discuss with them the timing and whether that actually would be better done during the holidays or something. But if we could just keep a careful eye on that, please. Andy.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm Andy McLeod. I'm the Surrey Councillor for Farnham Central. A point I wanted to make up, Elaine, it's not directly connected to this board, but still an important point, that the Farnham Brightwells board doesn't exist anymore, so there's no proper oversight of some of what Crest are doing actually from a coordination point of view. And there's another important thing that needs to be done in this area, which is the restoration of all the trees along the A31. Now, that's not your responsibility, but I just want it to be noted, Tim, that that's a very important point, that the trees are all restored once the entrance to the obviously 31 disappears. And that's a big job. We need to make sure that Crest do a good job on that one. And I'm not sure how we do that now that the Brightwells board doesn't exist anymore.
So just for comfort, we are still working with Waverley's team and Crest Nicholson. So I can raise that at their meetings. We have, I think, it's monthly at the moment. So I can raise that there.
Thank you. Is that everything then on 3.2 on Berettas? I think that the LC whip and the water lane are quite quick, aren't they? Otherwise, I'm going to change the agenda around. But if they're just an update, let's do those next.
Yes, unfortunately, Neil McClure's not here today, but just I have got his narrative in the progress report. So there is his words in that. But just for information, Surrey County Council are taking forward the stage 2 feasibility design for the priority routes now for the Farnham and Waverley LC whip. In terms of the LC whip report, I'm advised that there's one item still up for discussion regarding the alignment of the section of the route in Farnham Park, or 2 routes. I think it's up, is it Hale Trail and Scholars, isn't it? I think, but it doesn't impact on the feasibility design going forward. So I think Catherine's working with Neil on that one.
Just again, just for benefit of those in the room, the across the county, there's a desire and ambition to introduce cycling and walking paths wherever possible to join up communities and to encourage people to actually ideally get out of their vehicles and have a little bit of activity. So there are local cycling and walking plans being developed right across the county. And this is one of them. So it's you know, it's part of the whole active travel program, which has historically received significant funding from government, and we'll see hopefully that will continue. But you know, they're not always that easy to design, are they, Catherine?
Just one correction, it's not currently sitting with me, it's currently sitting with Paul Follows. Paul chaired the meeting of Farnham, Waverley and Surrey County Councillors, Surrey councillors, and there was some proposed changes to the minutes of meeting. He and I have had some discussions, but we need to finalise those discussions, but the action is with him to find a time that he's available.
Next slide, Water Lane. So construction is now complete for Water Lane roundabout and the Toucan crossing. A post-construction road safety audit has been undertaken. There's limited actions from this, which is replacing a damaged light column. So we'll be carrying that action out, and we'll still carry on monitoring to see how popular it is and how effective.
Is there any kind of local feedback in terms of what residents are saying?
I think that the local feedback is that the traffic side of things, so the 3 lanes works a lot better, particularly with the Keep Clear. The Keep Clear being reinstalled has had really positive feedback. The feedback on the crossing is it's great, but the one on the A325, as we previously discussed, is a much higher priority. There is currently a planning application in for the land between Water Lane and the wastewater treatment plant. I have spoken to the TPD team and talked to them about what might be included in terms of resolving that issue and improving and joining up the cycling and walking facilities. So hopefully that will provide the missing links that we weren't able to provide. Thank you.
Good, that sounds good. Right, before you start on item 4 then, Elaine, which is the update or orally on the town centre improvements, I'm just going to deal with the 2 public questions that we received regarding the ironstone paving. One from Councillor Hess, who's sitting behind me here, and then also one from Martin Lloyd, on behalf of the Farnham Society, and they both deal with in part the same point. So this is to do with the ironstone paving on Castle Street, and having had my own site visit there this morning, it is a shame that you know, that it is being churned up by vehicles parking on it. Now, and also there are bits of tarmac sort of sitting in the middle. The bits of that are you know, the private bits that sit in front of the shops, you know, looks fantastic, and, you know, really adds value to the town. What I have discussed with Elaine is that to sort of just to make sure that everybody kind of understands what the proposals are, and any, you know, if there are sort of just suggested tweaks, that there's a site visit. This is, you know, largely being driven by the heritage team. So we would certainly want the Surrey County Council heritage officers to be there, and I don't know if whether Waverley or Farnham also, but basically I've asked Elaine, who's happily agreed, to set up a time to meet with all of those that are interested, to have a little look at that and see what we can do beyond what is already proposed around the replacement of part of it, a relocation of part of it, and the replacement with York stone. You know, it is a lovely feature, but at the moment, kind of what's there is not, doesn't look that great. So if that's okay, Elaine.
Just to say, the plans weren't shared, and maybe the original illustrative plan was not as clear. So I think it's winging its way to you, the plan, which has a lot more detail of actually how the paving will look, because we are using it quite sympathetically, and I think it wouldn't have come across in the plans which were on the internet. So we'll share those more detailed ones with you, Councillor Hess and Yolande, etc. And then we can have a, you know, a look on site. But it has been through quite a few teams, just to say it's been through our heritage teams and Waverley's heritage teams, and Jenny.
Yes, David.
Yes, thank you very much. My name's Councillor David Beeman. I'm the Farnham Town Council representative for Farnham North West and the Farnham Town Council collective voice on this board meeting. I'd just like to add support to the fact that we did discuss this. This was raised at the Town Council meeting on the 19th of December, and at that we recommended, you know, there was some concern about this ironstone, and then we made a recommendation to Council which was passed unanimously that FTC confirmed to SEC its previously advised position that the ironstone outside of the Pizza Express and Tellers Arms be retained. So it's an area which has caused us concern. And also, as an aside to that, we also wanted the greening rain garden outside 74, 75, the hospitality areas to be filled up perhaps to outside 70 and 71.
Thank you, Councillor Beeman. We have looked at that area in quite a lot of detail, and just to kind of say that we have to look at disability arrangements because they are quite slippery. And we also have to look at things like how maintenance will happen in that area because cars churn them up as well. With regards to the Tellers Arms, this has come in left field for us because it's all of a sudden been told that it's got a bank 1 minute and now it's a, you know, a hospitality place. So we have to kind of think we can't keep changing it. The design's fixed, but it doesn't stop us having a look at it still. So, you know, this is very late in the programme, so it's not something we can't all go and meet out on site and just have a practical view, final view. So that's fine.
Only. Okay, I think I think what we need to do is to set up that meeting. Apologies that my back is to all of you, but if I could ask Councillor Hess to liaise with Martin Lloyd and anybody else within the Farnham world that wants to join that. I mean, without sort of inviting the whole of Farnham there. But I think it would be helpful just to have that on-site meeting with the appropriate officers. And then address both the Tellers Arms and the ironstone paving see where we can get. I mean, absolutely, there's a desire to retain that paving wherever possible. So some of it would propose to be relocated, but as I say, just looking at it today again, there are lumps of it that are being churned up by vehicles, and we kind of do need to do something that's going to provide a kind of long-term solution. So, sorry, Jenny.
Just to say on the site visit, it was very much removing where the vehicles were going to be. So it is very much about not having those stones where vehicles are, but really where they're currently located is going to be more hospitality and paving. Appreciate they can be slippy and trippy, but hopefully vehicles won't be on that area.
Hopefully not, because they are the ones that are causing the damage. So, okay, so if I can leave it to Lane, and your team will liaise with George Hess and then get that meeting in the diary with anybody that wants to join. Yes, so Andrea Newman, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, hi, sorry for the interjection. Andrea Newman, I'm Director of Communications for Surrey County Council. It is literally just to say, Tim, that colleagues online can't hear if people don't use their mic, so we're missing quite a bit if people don't press the mic. So sorry for the interjection, but I just felt we should say.
No, thank you. Without calling out anybody, I think it's Tony. Yours keeps dropping out, I think.
We want to hear those words of wisdom 100%.
Morning, Greg.
Morning.
Yeah, I don't think there's any council that doesn't struggle with its microphone system. But right, okay, so hopefully that addresses the question from Councillor Hess and the question from Martin Lloyd, and we'll do a formal response to the Farnham Society as well. Okay, so on that basis, should we go to item 4 then, which is walking through the town centre improvements orally? Thank you.
Okay, so since the last board, the team has been working to progress the project towards construction as we scheduled to get started on site during February half term. So one thing that's happened since the last board, the detailed phasing for 2025 and the overall high-level phasing for the overall length of the project has been shared, both with members and officers, but as well, kind of like a shortened version has been put online. So this plan will change as we progress, but we will keep it updated and both online and circulate new phasing pack to the relevant officers and councillors. We've also been in conversation with Farnham Town Council regarding events, and we're very pleased to say that all usual events can go ahead for 2025. So that includes the food festival, the carnival, the Christmas market. So I hope this is a very good piece of news. We've been working with Stagecoach or bus operator to try and minimize disruption to the services. And so far, we kind of like focus on the early phases, so 2 to 4. But we will repeat this exercise for the remaining phases of 2025 next month, and again then for 2026. So working very closely together. We've agreed in principle with Waverley Borough Council the provision of a loading bay for deliveries to be accommodated in the central car park for the later phases of the program, the more disruptive ones for businesses. So for example, phase 6 Downing Street. And Waverley Borough Council has also agreed in principle to relocate displaced on-street parking permit holders in Waverley Borough Council car park free of charge for those periods in time where we need to close the roads to facilitate construction. So again, a big thank you to Waverley Borough Council, because that's going to make a big difference to residents and business through the scheme. So just going back to the phasing, the map shown on screen show the first 2 phases of the project, which are coming up in the next few months. So later this month is just setting up action So setting up the compound, material order, but from 17th of February, we'll start with the removal of the islands at the top of Downing Street and temporary signals to install a two-way section of traffic to keep the traffic moving. And then in March to May, we'll move to the bottom of Downing Street and we'll complete pavement widening works and set up the bottom of Downing Street ready to be made two-way, not just at the end of phase 3, but once we've done then completed phase 4, which is the junction at Longbridge Road and Downing Street. And there's more detail on the website, as mentioned. Yep. Oh, sorry.
To me. So you mentioned ongoing discussions with Stagecoach. Obviously, I do still have concerns about losing bus routes that go past Farnham Hospital, particularly from the Sandy Hill estate, which is the number 5 bus, and the discussion about using the number 4 route during any works, because that does mean that we have no connectivity between the most deprived area in Farnham and the hospital, which is their only GP surgery. There is no GP surgery in the whole of my division. So if you are having discussions, it would be really helpful to understand what the proposals are around that and to be involved in that, because I know that when we closed the Upper Hale Road, we did lose that service for a prolonged period of time, and it did cause significant problems to residents and the hospital. So I really do want to be involved in those discussions, please.
Oh, yeah, no, it's mentioned because as we progress near the time, we can go in more and more detail. So at the moment, the very detailed focus has been on phase 2 to 4, and those routes won't be affected. When we progress to the later phase and go through that level of details, then they'll have an update about the impacts on the wider area. And yeah, sure.
So my understanding is there will be some nighttime closures on 4. And if there are going to be any nighttime closures, that does affect the 4 and 5 buses and does affect those routes. So if you're telling me that it won't be affected at all in phases 2, 3 and 4, that's fine. And we can discuss it a bit later. But if it is going to affect if there are going to be any lane closures or overnight closures that are going to affect particularly the 4 and 5 bus, I really would like to talk about it because it does remove access to the hospital from Sandy Hill. And we have a number of staff who work at the hospital who live on.
Yeah, probably phase 4, the last few buses won't be able to go through and will be diverted. And we'll be liaising with Stagecoach on the comms in terms of diversion.
I think the point is clear. So we just need to make sure that the diversions still enable those that use that route routinely, that they can still do that. So I think without going into the absolute detail now, if we could just take that point away and just recognise that we need to make sure that people can access the hospital.
Oh, yeah. Just a thought, actually, Tim, not just for this issue, but for other similar issues later. Could the Surrey Connect service play at least a small part in helping with some of these issues? It's perhaps not well enough publicised yet, actually, but some people will use it to go from where they live to the hospital. It could only provide a limited, mitigation, but it could perhaps help a little bit.
Right. Owen, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. Yes, I mean, obviously, as we discuss the diversion routes of the bus company and so on, we'll work out what the gaps are in terms of any service provision and so on, and see where we best can mitigate against those. And if Surrey Connect is one of those potential mitigations, albeit relatively small, as you say, then obviously we'll look at that. I think that the key thing here is that we are in continuous discussions with the bus company to make sure that we do the best to get the sort of services and replacement services and so on in place. And if there are certain sections of the town that are then not able to access or have to go further to access bus services which are there, then obviously we'll be making sure that that is, well communicated out and so on as part of the comms plan, plus any suggestions of mitigation and so on. But we do need to we need to accept that there will be some disruption, and just by the very nature of having to close certain roads to do this work, there will be some disruption, and we'll try and mitigate the best we can against it. Sorry, yes, apologies. Owen Jenkins, I'm Executive Director for Highways, Infrastructure and Planning at the County Council.
Sorry, just to point out, we're talking about nighttime closures and the Surrey Connect bus does not run at night. If one of the options you were willing to look at, Owen, would be to allow the Surrey Connect bus to run at night during this time period, then maybe that is a solution. But at the moment, what people had to do last time was pay for taxis, and that pushed people into who were already in a financially vulnerable situation into a worse position. And to me, that's not acceptable.
Okay, well, I think the point's well made, so we'll make sure that's addressed and the mitigations as part of the phasing. Okay, thank you, Aurelie.
Can we have the next slide, please? Sorry. Thanks. Oh, that was your questions, but you've already discussed that, I think. Sorry, yeah, so I'm handing over to Ben to talk about the communications.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Fanning. I'm the Senior Communications Manager, and I work for Surrey County Council. So just to have a bit of a chat through some of the communications we're doing ahead of the town centre works. And I want to start by just saying we are listening to feedback on project communications. And I do want to reassure you, we are going a long way further than we have on any scheme that I've ever seen in my 11 years at Surrey County Council. That does include town centre projects like in Epsom, which happened probably about 8-9 years ago. Typical roadworks, they tend to just get a letter and a postcard and some signs about a week ahead. We are going far beyond that, and I'll run through some of that tactical work in just a moment. I agree we need to do a lot here to ensure people are informed, but my job isn't just to throw messaging out there and hope for the best. I'm trying to take a long-term strategic view, utilising the knowledge and experience we have across the organisation. And if we're not careful, warning signs become wallpaper. Send too many emails, they just don't get opened. Letters get put to the side and forgotten. We've also got 2 years of this, and what we're building up to now with overnight road closures, I'm afraid isn't to patch on what's coming down the line as we've been discussing. So it's vital the town is still listening when we need them to. We will always do the best we can with the information we have at the time. I'm not actually in control of the timeline. Comms is actually the last piece of that jigsaw. And any number of things outside of our control can impact those timelines. So we have to provide a balancing act between providing timely information and providing reliable information. So we have publicly shared a timeline for the whole project. We're talking about, some of this is about works happening that's 2 years away. I work a lot on the work at junction 10 of the M25 and A3. National Highways won't release information about M25 closures until about 4 weeks ahead because so much changes behind the scenes. I think we have struck a balance, but as we've said, we will continue to provide those updates and more detail as the project progresses. I'll talk a bit more about the newsletter in a little while, but that's a monthly update. As I said, we have said many times previously, we will do extras if we need to. But I think as we get into the rhythm of the project, that probably will be the right time that we can give people constant updates. And I've always said that the website will be up to date. There is one other balancing act that I just want to bear in mind. We do need to be open and honest about the impacts of these works, but we also don't want to create a narrative that puts people off coming to the town altogether either. So we just need to bear that in mind about how we communicate and the sort of language we use. Just to go a couple of headlines that you can see up on the board at the moment. We will have some advanced warning signs going up on the main town centre approach road. That should be up in the next couple of I think that by early next week, we've been promised. I think they're going to be white ones. There will be probably yellow ones further down the line, which are more specific about the works in each place. We also, particularly in these early phases, there's going to be multiple phases happening quite quickly. So we also don't want to overlitter the town with signs. We also don't want to confuse people by putting up too many signs that say slightly different things. There's now 500 subscribers to the Project e-newsletter. As I said, that will probably go, I'm looking to send that in the first week of every month. So the first one will go in week commencing the 3rd of February. That will also be, if something does come up that we need to send out urgently, of course, we will do that. We'll be doing an all-letter resident letter drop in the week beginning of the 10th of February. That's kind of high level across the project. I'm just signing off some vinyl banners and outdoor posters. They'll go in places like car parks, community recycling centres. I'll put some on the railings out here. We're expecting them back next week. A Meet the Contractor event for businesses is coming up a week on Monday, so they can answer questions, and the BID and the Chamber of Commerce and the Waverley Economic Team have been kindly sharing that among business networks for us. We've got social media underway. We're going to do some slightly different things. We're using sort of clever geo-targeting to make sure we get people going through the who are passing through rather than visiting the town, as well as doing something more resident focused. Next slide, please, Jenny. Sorry, am I going too far? Yeah, okay. Yep.
It's good to sort of start to talk about the detail, but I think that we need to start, the starting point for me on this is that there is one version of the truth. There'll be lots of ways in which we can use local channels to get this stuff out there, but the starting point has to be, really good quality, accurate information. We know that our good friends, the utility companies, will come in left field just at the wrong moment, and that will have an impact on the timings of the works. So absolutely get the point about not overloading people with information in too far in advance, because that may change. But I suppose for me, what I'd like to understand is where is that central repository going to be that people can go in and they can see, a week ahead, a month ahead or whatever, but equally almost a day ahead when something happens. There's a burst water main, there's a gas leak, all the stuff that we've seen, experience across the whole county, and particularly in West Street, last year, and so on. So that, can you just explain how where you're going to put all that information that then, people can then access?
The one source of the truth will always be the website, and I will keep that updated at all times. As soon as information comes through to me, I will put updates on there, so that will remain the one version of the truth. Depending on if there are urgent things, there's other things we can do. Like I said, there's things like the newsletter. We can put out social media alerts for that urgent stuff. If things can hold on for the monthly newsletter, we'll hold on to the monthly newsletter. But if we need to get messages out, we will. But it's the website that's the one version of the truth. And we're putting up, making arrangements places like the library, here at the Town Council, and the contact centre. So if people are offline, they can also come and access information as often as we can.
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of one version of the truth, if you go onto the website now, it doesn't include information on bus diversions. It sends you to another page to look for those. It doesn't include the map that we have talked about, which I know you're still working on walking and cycling, which car parks you can access, which roads are closed. We seem to have an ongoing issue currently at Surrey County Council around accessibility, which means that we don't put maps on things because we're worried about using a map and I completely understand. I have 2 members of my group at Surrey who currently have eyesight problems, so I am very well aware of this, given everything else that's going on that's very map-based. But not including maps because the people who have sight issues can't read them is depriving those that can see the maps of even being able to explain it to the people who can't see the maps, if you know what I mean. So I think that one version of the truth is very good, but the one version of the truth has to include all the information that people want in an easily digestible format for people. And what concerns me at the moment is what's on the website is a very short form that actually doesn't include the information that people need and the people that are asking me for. And I can fill that gap but then we move away from one version of the truth. And we talked previously about wanting to work together to make sure that we all understood what that one version of the truth was and the information people wanted, but I'm not quite sure we've filled that gap yet.
There's a couple of things to pick up there. So if I forget something, do prompt me. In terms of bus information, that isn't available yet. We know from the early phases that buses are not being diverted. So, and I think that does say that. And yes, maps are an issue on the website, and I'll continue. Maps can be exempt from accessibility, but they're just things we need to do and work through. In terms of why I put a link through to the bus information, this is a bit of an experience from the issues in Bramley a couple of years ago when we duplicated information that the bus team was providing, and then they would update it and they wouldn't tell me. So this goes back to a version of the truth. Rather than duplicating and having different information, one out of date and one not out of date, I thought the easiest thing would be is to link through to the up-to-date information that I know the bus team do. So they've got their own rhythm and they work on that, but I will have a chat with them about it and I will consider that feedback.
Just on that point, obviously the last works we did that closed roads was the closures on the Upper Hill Road, and the bus routes there did not work. The diversion routes were notified very late. The diversion routes that were used were different to the diversion routes that were advertised. It caused an awful lot of problems. And what I'm trying to avoid is that happening again on a bigger scale in the town centre. Closing the Upper Hill Road is one thing. It affects one group of people. Closing roads in the town centre is a very different ballgame.
So I don't think there's any issue with signposting people to other sources of information from the central website. But it's not, we know that there are going to be things that happen at short notice. So it is rather than as we sort of see, somebody makes a comment on Facebook and then that gets traction and all the rest of it. So it's absolutely essential that that website contains the most current information, and and that you point people at, if somebody else is responsible for updating it, that you point them to it. So I think that's where we've got to get to, and we've got to be absolutely rigid around making sure that website is absolutely spot on. Andrea.
The only thing I was just going to add is just with the website. I mean, I'll take this as an action to kind of follow up in support of the work that Ben's trying to do. It matters not that whether it sits in comms or not, but because the website actually is run by a different team, as you know. And I know you'll hate me saying this, Tim, but I'm afraid that there is some sort of red tape. These accessibility rules for websites it's a sort of legal requirement set down by government. I mean, we could be in breach of those accessibility guidelines we just need to find a workaround. So I need to understand exactly what the problem is we're trying to solve, and how we can do that within, without breaking any rules, but actually doing the thing that we need to do. That's a practical, helpful piece of information that kind of residents need. So I'm not going to sort of let the bureaucracy police sort of stop us, but that is why I think Ben's hands are tied a little bit in respect of the website. So, but I will take that away and I will look into it, Tim, and try and understand what the problem is.
Yeah, and thank you, Andrew. And that's why it's helpful to have you on this call, because, one workaround may well be that those maps are sent to the town council and they can be displayed or available for the public to come and have a look at them here and so on. So, yeah, we can't we can't have the thought police stopping us from doing sensible things. So I think if you can have a think around how we can, then that's why it is important that that there is that sort of central repository, and I know that the town council, I'm sure, will be very happy to kind of have a board up somewhere in the reception area so people can pop in and have a look. Thanks.
Just to kind of fill the gap, the contractor, we've got to meet the contractor event on the 27th of this month, isn't it? So people can start kind of getting to know the contractors, and really and truly a lot of the kind of the works which businesses might be worried about and things like that. Sometimes it's always better just to say, I've got a contact, I've got a little bit of a worry about what's happening outside my shop, or a resident, you know, if they've got accessibility issues, always better to go to them because they can do, you know, they're pretty quick at actioning then the issue. We've also got a site representative for Surrey who you'll meet at the Meet the Contractor event, who will also, you know, be your aid to sort of help any kind of issues. So, you know, they're going to be telling us what they're doing, what they've done that week and what's happening next week. And something like an e-newsletter that can go out, or via social media, which I'm sure that's quite an easy win, but because it kind of keeps much more up to date then, rather than trawling through a whole website. And I think that would help most people.
And can I suggest when you go and see the contractors, you take some biscuits with you? My experience is that you get a better response. Greg.
Thanks. Sorry, just to slightly prolong the comms thing. I've been thinking about this while we've been talking. I know there's a desire to host things on other people's websites, which is fine. But going back to your point, Tim, about having a single point of truth, would it not be better to create a Farnham infrastructure project website that all information is placed on, and that other teams' websites point to, rather than, for example, as is listed here, that the Waverley talks about car parking or what, etc. Because I just think that's a recipe for disaster on this.
Thanks, Greg. And Greg is a member of Parliament for Farnham.
Sorry, yes, I should have said apologies.
Yes. Ben.
I'll have to ask questions. It's not within my direct gift. One of the challenges will be, if we were to say host it on the Surrey site, it's getting people from external organisations to have access. But I hear what you're saying. I'll ask some questions and see what we can do. As it currently stands, I'm just trying to kind of create as best I can do within the Surrey site. But I will ask some questions and see what is possible in that space.
I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Just one point. There's one mind and one point of truth, but then of course it's the delivery of one point of truth, which I think is an issue here. All right, for down on Upper Hale Road, I think it was supposed to close from 8 o'clock in the evening, and they started closing it earlier than that. So that was where the truth didn't get delivered properly, and because of that, then bus drivers got confused, which is and then started going off. That's why they started going on an alternative route earlier. So you can have one point of truth in written, but it's delivering one point of truth in reality.
The aim is to have those the same. I mean, that's the whole point. But I accept what you're saying. Right, Catherine, and then we'll go back to Ben if that's all right.
Thanks, Tim. Just a couple of things. My understanding from the correspondence was the meeting on the 27th is meet the contractor for businesses and only businesses. Are you saying that as councillors we are welcome to attend as well? And are you extending that out beyond businesses is question one. And the second thing is, if you have got maps, you know, a number of us have Facebook pages, various other ways that we can send those maps out. It hasn't got a Surrey logo on it. It can have a Surrey logo on it, but it can go out under a different heading. You know, as long as there's some revision control around that, that's an easy thing to do. And as Andrea said, we are tied up in red tape, which does seem slightly mad, but I can understand that it happens.
I think it would be one of, I think, the really key roles, I think, for councillors, from my perspective in this project, is to be those eyes and ears in the community, sharing the information. You know it better than I do. And I think if we can have a really good relationship over the coming months to share those information, I'd really value that. And I think it would be really good for residents to do that. While the meeting is business focused, yes, of course, if you want to come along, you are more than welcome. We just want to make sure that businesses feel like they've got a space for them, but it's not to say that it's a closed door. In terms of some of the points around reality and everything else, that's where the clerk of works will come in, and so we can make sure that he's following in, and we really want him to be an important link between like the business community and residents and the contractor as well.
Very quick. There will be a Farnham Town Council AGM coming up, which is obviously open to all members of the public. I don't remember what the date is. Jenny probably knows. I mean, one option, given that we're not giving the members of the public necessarily an opportunity to read the contractors, would be to try to align it with that in some way, shape or form.
It's scheduled for Monday, the 24th of March.
I think, well, that's something that, I mean, the town council will have to make a decision whether they want to do that or not. But I think I think the suggestion that at some point, at an appropriate point, that there is a sort of a public forum where people can go to be updated and so on probably makes sense. But when that will be, I think you need to kind of have a think. But Andy, and then we will. Sorry, Jenny, and then Andy, then we'll go back. Jenny, do you want to go first?
It's worked very well. It's the annual town meeting, and we've had all tiers there to represent different items that are interested, for the public. So I'm sure everyone is welcome to come and represent there. Thank you.
Well, Ben, we'll leave that as in lane to pick up. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Tim. Just a reminder on the 27th event, because I did see details about it. It's a drop-in event, is that correct? Does it run all day or most of the day? And where's it actually going to be held? Just remind me of all that. I did see details, but I've forgotten them.
It's kind of late afternoon, early evening, and it's going to be in the sort of reception area downstairs here, so people can just easily drop in.
Okay. Ben, is there anything you want to, your second slide, I think, Ron?
Yeah, I'll try and work through this fairly quickly. So the Works Comms team, who are very, experienced at doing this, they're going to do their usual work with the signage, and they'll be going to very specific letters, going to the people that are most directly impacted with particular information for them. Media releases, work with the Farnham Herald will, of course, carry on that. Get link into the website about kind of what I've asked Waverley to do, but I'll listen to the comments on board there, but I'm asking them to sort of share as well. I mentioned offline. We will, when we get to those long, complicated, difficult phases later on where there's closures, we will do some sort of signage in some way, shape or form to highlight that shops are still open and to direct shoppers around. And lastly, when the weather gets a bit better, I think will be a good lead up to those harder closures later on. If we would like to do a walking, cycling, public transport campaign, the cycle campaign, the Farnham cycle campaign was in touch with me a couple of months ago about wanting to work with us on this, and I think that'd be a really positive thing. Looking at, talking to our resident intelligence unit and our behaviour change lead about identifying the barriers and the motivators and trying to put together a proper sort of goods campaign just to start trying to get people to change their behaviour now when the weather's nice and ahead of those harder pieces of work later on. And I also think that'd be a good point just to highlight about things like buses, but also to promote Surrey Connects. But I'll link in with the team and kind of see what we can make available in terms of what is available about that in due course. Happy to have any further questions.
Okay. Thank you, Ben. I mean, the positive thing is that we're talking about how we're going to communicate the works that are now about to start. So, so I think that lots of sort of suggestions and thoughts there, but I think it all comes back to the same point: is how do we set up a system where we can get that accurate, good quality, timely information out, and using all the channels that you've described there, but also the local channels, and very reliant upon elected members for the town council, the borough council, and the county council to help with that, and so on. So if we can leave you to go away, I think. And Andrea, do you want the last comment?
I was just going to say to Mr. Stafford, I mean, I will go away and I will, we won't just say no for the sake of saying no. I mean, we will look into whether we can have a standalone website. And if that feels like the best thing to do and we're able to get past the sort of the bureaucracy of it, then we will absolutely do that. That seems eminently sensible. But just thinking out loud on the maps, I mean, and I can pick this up with Ben offline, but there's other things we can do. We could do a short video, for example, that actually talks through and explains the routes and where the impacts are going to be and where the highs and lows and the ebbs and flows will be. And the way that we can get around some of the maps issues is quite often when we do our videos, we have a YouTube page, which is, sort of means it's hosted externally and it gets around some of those kind of accessibility challenges. So I think let us go away and just work up some more of those options and then come back to you. But I think that we can find some workarounds that will hopefully satisfy you.
And I'm sure the University of Creative Arts would be very keen to help us with videos and messaging. Okay, fine. I think that's helpful. So unless there's anything else on that item, we'll move on to item 5. Thank you, Elaine.
Just before I start, I thought I'd fill in the gap of we're actually going out with drones today to have a look at the high street to show before and afters, because I think that's really important to show that, what we've actually come from to, and it's that messaging for later on. Oh, we've skipped ahead. Hannah. So this is how all our schemes interface with other ones. I can't see it in detail because I haven't got my glasses on, I have to say. But the town centre works, as you've all discussed. Wait. We'll start on the 17th of December. We're readying. Borelli's has started now, like we said. You wouldn't have seen much because, like I say, with Borelli's, it's all the electrical works. We have to have a time to go in and get milestone in and take the lamp columns out, which are there, etc. And then obviously Crest we're working with to get some more defined dates of when the bridge is coming out, but that's outside of our remit. If you go on to the next slide, please. So the resurfacing of South Street is going to happen. I can't remember where in the phasing. I think it's later.
It's phase 5, sorry. South Street in summer. We brought that forward because of the maintenance.
I think that's really important to, we are picking up maintenance issues so we don't come back. I know you all want us to, but we're not.
Oh, yes, sorry. So South Street, we brought it back to summer, autumn this year.
So the A31 corridor, this is the big one happening in the background, which everyone's very silent about. But this was submitted in 2021. It went from quite a long time with central government because of all the changes. During that time, as you can imagine, costs have gone up. And I need to make sure that we've got the right scheme now because there's, times change, policies have changed, more active travel, etc., etc. So we're giving it a full review, making sure our residents are getting value for money for what we're getting from government. However, we are working with the Department of Transport. They are fully on board and we're looking at sort of the business case coming forward and fully submitted in 2026. August 2026. It sounds a long time, but design happens in that period and consultation. So that's why it sounds so long, but it actually is a big scheme. So it does take a long time because of the design implications.
And can I ask that you keep Greg fully up to speed on the bit? So Greg, I think you're still there. We just ask you to sort of keep a bit of an eye on the department to make sure that this doesn't going to slip out of the program. I mean, I think I think we're confident that it's stayed within the funding has remained. But if you could just help us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I asked a question on this before Christmas and I got a fairly weak response, but my understanding is it's still in, but I will press again.
very much, Catherine.
So, obviously you've indicated there's a lot of change that's going to go on because of active travel. We've obviously discussed that before. And obviously from Farnham's perspective, north-south connectivity is potentially more important than the actual purpose of the exercise, which is really just putting more traffic along the A31. When is going to be the time when you can engage with local councillors? Obviously, we've had no discussion on this for 2.5, 3 years. And it is still a major concern for a lot of our residents, particularly the north-south connectivity. It would be good if we could have some kind of discussion in the short term, as well as the interfaces with the train station, which do obviously still remain a significant concern.
Yeah, so there is the LC whip, which interfaces. So anything that's coming out of the LC whip and any changes, et cetera, we're working with Neil on that one. With regards to the station, they've gone quite quiet, actually. Originally, it was going to be a big master plan, but I haven't heard anything lately, even though we meet with them, I think, every 2 months. I haven't heard anything recently. If you hear anything, do tell us. I haven't heard. It was a big project 1 minute, now it's quite quiet, but we will, look at it because there's a mobility hub opportunity there for Farnham. So I'm not doubting that. I'm on your side, I'm pushing from behind. So don't feel like just because we're quiet about it, work isn't happening. It's obviously just in that review stage at the moment. Next slide. Still haven't got my glasses, but the key milestones, we've done it does show the gravity of actually what we've delivered, actually, when I kind of scale down the blurred image on the screen. Borelli's is obviously happening now. Town centre's coming forward. We had to avoid the Christmas period. We're obviously coming forward on the 17th of February. That is just because we are in the area, we are starting to mobilise. It's not works on the ground, you'll essentially see. And the LC whip has been, I'm advised, slightly delayed for approval of the report and update and addendum to the additional comments, but it doesn't stop the feasibility work happening in the background. Any questions?
Sorry, I think we've lost sound again at our end.
Sorry, that's me. Sorry, apologies. So item 8, which is terms of reference for this board, which we would normally review annually, which we haven't done. So I think it would be helpful to do that in the context now that we're moving from kind of the strategic stuff to operational delivery, and how people want this board to operate. We obviously need to have a forum where there are those sort of regular updates, but we'll circulate the existing terms of reference, and then if anybody likes to comment on those. I'll just push it into the mix, although it remains to be seen whether which way things go. But I think most people will know that there is a request into the government following the publication of the English Devolution White Paper on the 16th December that we look at across Surrey at reorganisation of local government, which is supported, I think, across all political parties. And we'll see whether or not we are put onto the accelerated programme, and we'll know that within the next couple of months, weeks. And then though I don't think that will have an impact on this particularly, but just to flag that up, if we are on that programme, then in theory we would move towards a unitary position in May 2026. So that's it's a very tight timescale. But I think, that what has been very good and helpful, with this board is the cooperation that there has been between the three tiers of local government. So I'm hopeful that the other conversations, as and when they happen, will be dealt with or will progress in the same positive way. So, but I think in the meantime, anyway, we should look at the terms of reference, and so I would just welcome sort of feedback from people in terms of how they want this board to operate now, going forward. Catherine.
Thanks, Tim. I think one of the big concerns that I have as the county councillor for North Farnham is that, originally we talked about doing North and South Farnham studies to look at the mitigations that we needed to put in place before we started doing the works in the town centre. We've moved now to a position where we're going to do the town centre works, work out what's happened, and then have mitigations. I do remain concerned, as does Michaela, who unfortunately can't be here today, in terms of the impact on our residents. I would very much want the Farnham board to continue until such point as we had addressed those impacts and had mitigations in place for those impacts, and also would welcome the opportunity to continue to have a forum to discuss the A31, which will also obviously have a significant impact on Farnham and its residents. So, I will certainly be putting forward in the terms of reference to continue to look at the mitigations that are required outside the town centre, because I am concerned about the impacts.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that those important pieces of work aren't progressed. It's what forum we use, whether this is the right one or somebody say welcome some suggestions. David.
Thank you very much. I think as a town council, we discussed this some months ago actually internally, that we recognise that we're moving from a strategic phase to an implementation phase of the town centre. And it was certainly, well, we discussed it and we didn't come to a conclusion as such, but I think we'd welcome some terms of reference. And if that happened, I think if we're talking about town centre implementation works, it's likely that it'd be my prayer. I think I would recommend it. Farnham being represented by one of the two ward councillors, both of whom are present today, actually. Councillor S and Councillor Earwaker, rather than myself, who's a more strategic level.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think there's an encouragement to sort of make any suggestions by the end of this month, if that's possible, and then we can take it from there. So, and certainly, I think sort of streamlining the board would make sense. So. Okay, thank you. And then just under any other business, there's one item I'll raise, which is to do with the Recklesham bypass, which was part of the sort of discussions at the very early stages, following actually Jeremy Hunt sort of setting up the original air quality sort of meeting. I think there's always been an acknowledgement, though, that is a much longer term project. I think we have to be realistic at the moment that securing funding for that, I think, is going to be challenging. And also, I think the scheme will be challenging as well. So it's not fallen off the agenda, but it's not something at the moment that is necessarily being actively progressed. And I think what our focus needs to be on securing the funding and a scheme for the A31 first of all. And once we've got that hopefully nailed down, then we can possibly look at a Recklesham. But just to sort of set expectations that no real work at the moment is being done on that. But Greg, do you want to come in?
Yes, and I think you've reassured me a little bit with saying I wouldn't want this to drop off the agenda. I accept that the A31, A31 improvements are, the foremost concern, and obviously the ones that have progressed the furthest, and therefore it's right that you as the county council should be looking at that as the first priority. But I would urge that that the Recklesham bypass remains on the agenda, and even if it's not being proactively pushed at the moment by you guys, but it's still very much part of the long-term solution for dealing with air quality and traffic issues in and around Farnham.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and you've got that reassurance.
So just to be really clear, the what we need, if we have any kind of bypass, is a Western and Recklesham bypass, and the Recklesham bypass probably needs to not just bypass Recklesham, or it will just send the traffic through Rowledge. It actually doesn't solve the problem on the alignment that was previously discussed. So I think that we do absolutely, I'm looking for the reassurance that options to resolve the A287 issues and the A325 issues are also still on the table.
Yeah, I mean, I think yes is the answer. I mean, I think that we have to be realistic about it. I can't see that we are going to secure funding in the term of this current government, so nothing is off the table. But equally, there's a limit to how much work can be done or will be done on that at this stage. But you know, I mean, we'll see what you know down the line, whether there is significant funding that might come down our way from government, but who knows? Andy.
Very quick comment on that. I think it will only happen through the planning process. Personally, actually, it's not in the matter. It's not just a traffic matter at all. It has to be seen as part of the regional and local planning process. Because to be honest, the government made it clear that it will only happen if there's associated housing. So it's not just a traffic issue.
That's a very good point, and one that applies across the whole of the county now, where we have seen a significant increase in the number of houses that are expected to be constructed. You know, there needs to be a step back and look at a master plan for each of the town and surrounding areas, because you know you can't just build houses without building infrastructure to support it, and you know that's you know the funding of that. I mean, that's at the moment it's not clear from the government, you know, whether there will be central funding for infrastructure programs, or whether the only money that will be available is from, you know, Section 106 or something. But I think, you know, we're now moving into a very different phase, aren't we, in terms of what our, you know, what our environment is going to look like, where we are seeing significant or an expectation of significant increase in volumes of housing, and the pressure that's going to put on the existing services, which are already, as we know, kind of overstretched. So yeah, that Recklesham bypass, you know, would be absolutely sort of the sort of thing that will be need to be factored in where we're seeing growth in housing. Okay, any other business, David?
Is an old hobby horse of mine, but in the sense that for the next meeting, which is in March, I believe, could we have an update on what's being done for enforcement of the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit and HGV bans? I mean, certainly speeding on West Street is certainly a big issue in the town at the moment, so it's all very well having the regulations in place, but actually enforcing is another matter, which I know we've all discussed before, but we'd just like an update, please.
Well, I think there are two separate subjects. I mean, I think the problem, the challenge in introducing 20-mile-per-hour zones is they are not enforced, and they won't be enforced. It is the police responsibility to enforce them, and they've always been very clear they don't have the capacity to do that. So they have to be self-regulating. And in many areas they are. That's why they need to be in the right place. So I'm afraid I don't, unless somebody's going to correct me, I don't think that there's anything that the county council or local government can do around enforcement, greater enforcement, or any enforcement of 20-mile-per-hour. The HGV ban is different, and I hope, I say this with my fingers crossed, that the mobile camera at least has been regularly visiting Farnham. What we need is, you know, and I've just introduced an HGV ban in my own division in Weybridge, and you know, the frustration levels from residents are understandably where there's been no real change. You know, for the first 6 months, as we know from here, you can't find any breaches, but we're outside of that period in Farnham. We need to build the case for a permanent camera, and that's that's the next stage to this. I mean, I don't know, without kind of opening a whole debate about, I mean, I know that the, you know, it is, I mean, and just in Weybridge where we have Amazon, Every, and another Tesco, sort of three big distributors, you know, and I've had meetings with you know, with their teams. It is really, really difficult to get compliance. But I think so. So I think that the focus here needs to be on building the case for a permanent camera. But Catherine.
So as you rightly pointed out, we are outside the 6 months. To my understanding, we still haven't issued a single fine. And that's not going to act as a deterrent if we are not even using the powers that are available to us. And I think that, you know, the lack of compliance, particularly on the Upper Hale Road, is still very significant. I saw a double-decker car transporter coming down the road at actually pretty high speed, even over the 20 bumps. It's not safe. It has never been safe, and it's becoming even less safe as the traffic levels increase. And I really would encourage, and I guess I'm looking at Owen in a fairly pleading kind of way, is it at all possible that we can start applying some fines now we have it, and start publicising the number of fines that we're placing, because otherwise we're never going to get a fixed camera. And unfortunately, because it's an M3 A31 cut through, it's going to need enforcement because the temptation is too high.
Yeah, I'll certainly look into it. I don't know the detail of this one myself at the moment, but I'll certainly look into this. I'll take an action to do that. I'm not even sure where enforcement of this type sits in the council at the moment. I know my previous authorities, it's quite often been something that we've done with highways in conjunction with trading standards and so on. So I'll look into it and see where we are with it.
Trading standards have historically led on it, but of course they don't have the power to stop a vehicle, so they need to have a police presence alongside them, which is why it's been challenging. That's why the mobile camera is probably the best hope of actually getting some fines out there. I think we have to do that, because that would be the only deterrent I think that will be effective.
Yeah, I'm sure there's other sites around the county as well, so I'll certainly look at it.
Good, thank you. Thank you very much. Anything else anybody wants to raise? If not, as David says, the next meeting will be Friday, March the 28th. And in the meantime, hopefully the works will have started and it'll all be very smooth. And you know, we were at the start of what has been a long journey to get to this point, but I think we are now in a good space. So as long as we make sure residents absolutely know what's happening, I'm sure they'll, you know, live with the inevitable pain there will be at a level, but we will try and make it as painless as possible. So thank you all very much.